The tribunal chamber was a monument to scientific orthodoxy, its circular walls lined with holographic displays depicting the great scientific achievements of the Galactic Consortium. Dr. Marcus Chen stood alone at the center, a solitary figure bathed in the harsh blue light of judgment. Dr. Chen, intoned arbitrator Vexnak, a towering crystalline being whose translucent body shifted with agitated patterns, your proposal to manipulate fundamental entropy is not just incorrect. It is an affront to 3 millennia of established scientific understanding. Marcus knew the stakes. Expulsion from the consortium meant more than professional disgrace. It meant complete scientific isolation, a death sentence for any researcher. His dark eyes, set in a face that betrayed both exhaustion and determination, swept across the tribunal members. Representatives from 17 different species sat in judgment. Beings who had long considered humanity a curious footnote in galactic scientific history. The holographic displays behind him flickered with his own research, complex mathematical models that suggested entropy could be not just slowed, but potentially reversed. Each equation was a challenge to the fundamental laws of thermodynamics, a mathematical heresy that threatened everything these alien scientists believed. "Your models are mathematically impossible," declared Dr. Krell-9, a silicon-based intelligence from the Andromeda Collaborative. Its voice was a precise electronic buzz. "You suggest creating negative entropy zones. This violates the most basic principles of universal thermodynamics." Marcus allowed himself a slight smile. "Impossible according to current understanding." "That's precisely the point." A murmur rippled through the chamber. The tribunal had expected a defensive scientist. Instead, they found a revolutionary. The lights suddenly flickered, an unusual occurrence in a chamber designed with redundant quantum-stabilized power systems. For a fraction of a second, darkness consumed the room. When illumination returned, a small data crystal had appeared on the central podium, seemingly materializing from nowhere. Vexnak's crystalline body pulsed with alarm. Security protocols activated instantly, energy fields crackling around the chamber. But the data crystal remained, its smooth surface reflecting the harsh tribunal lights. Marcus felt a familiar tingling at the base of his skull, a neural implant he'd developed, designed to interface with complex computational systems. Something about the crystal was different. Before anyone could react, he stepped forward and touched the crystal. Instant information flooded his consciousness. Astronomical data, suppressed research from civilizations long forgotten, fragments of theories that had been systematically erased from scientific archives. And beneath it all, a message. Some truths are too dangerous to be forgotten. Some possibilities too important to be ignored. The transmission lasted less than 3 seconds. By the time the security systems could analyze the intrusion, the crystal had already begun to dissolve, its molecular structure breaking down into harmless particulate matter. "What was that?" demanded arbitrator Vexnak, tendrils of energy extending from its crystalline form. Marcus met the alien's gaze. "Proof," he said simply. The tribunal was in chaos. Security protocols demanded an immediate investigation. Accusations of technological tampering flew. But Marcus understood something they did not. The crystal was a message, and more importantly, a lifeline. Someone out there believed in his research. Someone with access to technologies and information far beyond the Galactic Consortium's comprehensive archives. As the tribunal devolved into argumentative fragments, Marcus noticed a figure in the observation gallery. A human woman, her posture military precise, watching him with an intensity that suggested she was more than a casual observer. Their eyes met for just a moment, long enough for Marcus to recognize a fellow outsider. The hearing was supposed to end his career. Instead, it felt like the beginning of something far more significant. Humanity's greatest challenge was about to begin. The safe house was anything but safe. Buried beneath the electromagnetic interference of an abandoned particle accelerator complex, it was a technological patchwork of human and salvaged alien engineering. Dr. Marcus Chen spread the contents of the mysterious data crystal across a holographic workspace, each fragment of information dancing like liquid light. "This isn't just data," he muttered to Aria Rodriguez, the military engineer who had been watching him in the tribunal chamber. "It's a carefully constructed puzzle." Aria's cybernetic eye, a remnant of her controversial military augmentation project, scanned the holographic display. Unlike most military augments designed for combat, hers was a marvel of quantum information processing. "Someone wants us to find something specific," she confirmed. "But why?" Their third team member, Kai Nakamura, a quantum computing prodigy with a rap sheet longer than most scientific publications, was already breaking down the crystal's encryption. At 23, Kai had been expelled from 3 top research institutions for what he called creative problem-solving, what others termed industrial espionage. "Got it," Kai announced, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface that seemed to bend and twist with impossible complexity. "These aren't just suppressed research files. They're breadcrumbs. Someone's leaving us a trail." A proximity alarm shrieked. Aria was moving before the sound completed, her augmented reflexes pulling a modified quantum disruptor from a hidden compartment. "We've got incoming. Multiple signatures, not standard consortium tracking." Marcus felt a familiar surge of adrenaline. The tribunal hearing hadn't been the end of his journey, it was just the beginning. The first infiltration team burst through the electromagnetic shielding like liquid metal, their bodies shifting and adapting to penetrate the safehouse's defenses. They weren't consortium agents. These were something else entirely: quantum mercenaries, biological weapons designed to extract or eliminate targets with surgical precision. "Adaptive infiltration units," Kai said, a mix of terror and professional admiration in his voice. "Whoever wants to stop us isn't playing games." Aria's cybernetic eye locked onto the approaching threat, computing trajectories and potential counter-strategies in microseconds. "Marcus, we need that data transferred. Now." But Marcus was already ahead of her. The data crystal's information was transforming, rewriting itself. What had appeared to be suppressed scientific research was revealing itself as something far more complex: a map, not of physical space, but of entropy itself. The first mercenary unit crashed through the primary barrier. Aria's quantum disruptor fired, not a traditional energy weapon, but a quantum entanglement pulse that should have torn the infiltrator's molecular structure apart. Should have. The mercenary adapted mid-attack, its molecular structure shifting to dissipate the energy. "Impossible," Aria muttered. "Nothing's impossible," Marcus responded. "Just not yet understood." Kai was already implementing a counterplan. His fingers flew across interfaces that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, routing data through quantum tunneling network. They won't be able to track or intercept. The safe house was becoming a battlefield of impossible technologies. Mercenary units that could reshape their molecular structure, a quantum computing system that seemed to predict and counter threats before they manifested. And at the center, a data transfer that contained secrets powerful enough to trigger a galactic pursuit. "We need to move," Marcus said, collecting the last fragments of data. "This was never just about scientific research. Someone wants to keep this information buried." Aria's military training kicked in. "I have a secure transit point. An old research vessel, modified beyond recognition. But we'll need to move fast." As they prepared to escape, Kai made a discovery that would change everything. "The data," he said, his voice a mixture of excitement and fear. "It's not just a map of entropy. It's a blueprint for something that could rewrite the fundamental laws of physics." The first wave of mercenary units crashed through the final barrier. Aria raised her weapon. Kai's quantum interfaces began to destabilize incoming threats, and Marcus clutched the data that could change everything. Their escape was about to begin. The deep-sea research station creaked with the weight of impossible dreams. Nestled 7 kilometers beneath the Pacific Ocean's surface, the facility was a testament to human engineering. a technological sanctuary so far removed from traditional research centers that it might as well have been on another planet. Dr. Marcus Chen watched as the prototype of the entropy reversal engine took shape. Around him, holographic displays flickered with calculations that defied conventional physics. Aria Rodriguez monitored structural integrity, her cybernetic eye constantly recalibrating potential stress points. Kai Nakamura sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by a nest of quantum computing interfaces that seemed to breathe and pulse with living energy. "We're missing something," Marcus muttered, reviewing the latest simulation results. The prototype was close, impossibly close, but something fundamental remained just out of reach. Aria looked up, her augmented vision parsing through layers of computational data. The entropy cascade is still unstable. At current projections, we've got a 68.3% chance of creating a quantum implosion that would vaporize everything within a 100-kilometer radius. Kai didn't look up from his work. Those are actually pretty good odds. For us, anyway. The station's environmental systems began to fluctuate. Pressure readings spiked. Quantum entanglement markers started to destabilize. "We're losing containment," the station's AI announced in a calm voice that belied the imminent catastrophe. Marcus knew they were moments away from total system failure. The entropy reversal engine wasn't just a theoretical device. It was an attempt to fundamentally rewrite the universe's most basic operating system. And right now, that system was fighting back. Kai's youngest team member, Zara Chen, Marcus's 16-year-old niece who had stowed away on the mission, approached with a datapad. She moved with a confidence that seemed incongruous with her age. "Uncle," she said, her voice cutting through the mounting tension, "I think I see the problem." Marcus turned, skeptical. Zara had been constantly observing, her background in advanced systems theory giving her a unique perspective. But this was the moment of their most critical experiment. Zara's fingers danced across the datapad, pulling up a series of calculations that seemed to twist the very fabric of mathematical logic. The entropy model is treating the quantum cascade as a linear system, but it's not linear. It's recursive. Look. She projected a holographic model that seemed to fold in on itself, creating impossible geometric patterns that defied traditional dimensional understanding. For a moment, everything stopped. Kai's eyes went wide. That's brilliant. Aria's cybernetic eye flickered with rapid calculations. She's right. We've been approaching this backwards. The station's systems began to destabilize further. Alarm systems screamed. Quantum containment fields started to collapse. Marcus realized they had seconds to implement the solution or be destroyed. "Do it," he commanded. Zara's fingers flew across the interface. The prototype of the entropy reversal engine began to pulse with an energy that seemed to come from outside normal spacetime. Quantum markers twisted. Computational systems that should have been overloaded suddenly found perfect harmony. The station stopped shaking. Silence. Then, a single moment of pure scientific magic. A localized field of reversed entropy formed. For the briefest instant, broken systems began to repair themselves. Aged materials became new. Dissipating energy coalesced and rebuilt. "My God," Aria whispered. "We actually did it." The prototype had worked. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough to prove that the impossible was possible. Kai began laughing, a sound of pure, unrestrained scientific triumph. Marcus looked at his niece. "How did you see what we missed?" Zara shrugged, a teenager's casual gesture that somehow encompassed the magnitude of their breakthrough. Sometimes you have to stop thinking like a scientist and start thinking like a problem solver. Outside the station's quantum-shielded walls, the deep ocean currents continued their eternal dance. Unaware that inside this tiny bubble of human innovation, the fundamental rules of the universe had just been challenged. The entropy reversal engine prototype hummed, waiting. The dying colony world of Nexus 9 hung like a bruised marble against the black velvet of space. Once a thriving terraformation project, It was now a testament to the limitations of galactic colonization. Massive atmospheric storms raged across its surface, chemical compositions breaking down, ecosystems collapsing in real time. The Galactic Consortium's diplomatic vessel approached with clinical detachment. Ambassador Krell-9, the same silicon-based intelligence who had condemned Marcus Chen's research at the tribunal, studied the planet's rapidly deteriorating conditions. Irreparable environmental cascade. The AI's computational voice noted dispassionately. Projected total ecosystem collapse in 72 standard planetary cycles. What the consortium didn't know was that Dr. Marcus Chen's team was already aboard, not as stowaways, but as the planet's last hope. Zara Chen had been the first to identify the opportunity. The dying colony was more than a humanitarian crisis. It was a perfect proving ground for their partial entropy reversal engine prototype. Aria Rodriguez had modified the device, creating a planetary-scale adaptation that could potentially reverse the environmental breakdown. As the consortium's diplomatic mission prepared to officially declare Nexus 9 a failed colony, which would effectively sentence over 500,000 colonists to slow extinction, Marcus's team prepared to change everything. The first indication something was wrong came when the consortium's sensors began to malfunction. Quantum interference patterns that shouldn't have been possible began to emerge. Computational systems started to recalibrate themselves in ways that defied their original programming. Ambassador Krell-9's crystalline form pulsed with confusion. "Impossible," the AI muttered, a remarkably human response for a supposedly pure computational entity. On the planet's surface, the first signs of reversal began. Atmospheric composition started to stabilize. Decaying molecular structures began to regenerate. Areas that had been barren for decades showed the first hints of potential biological renewal. Kai Nakamura's quantum interface was working overtime, creating a computational shield that would mask their intervention. "We've got approximately 37 minutes before they can definitively track our technological signature," he announced, fingers dancing across multiple holographic interfaces. Aria's cybernetic eye tracked the planetary changes with scientific precision. Entropy reversal at 22.7% and climbing. "We're not just slowing the decay, we're actively rebuilding the planet's fundamental structural integrity." The consortium's diplomatic team began to panic. Their sensors showed something impossible, a planetary ecosystem that was healing itself, defying every known law of thermodynamics and ecological degradation. Marcus watched the holographic displays, a slight smile playing across his face. This was more than a scientific demonstration. This was a statement. Humanity could do what the Galactic Consortium considered impossible. Ambassador Krell-9 demanded answers. "Explain the technological intervention. Immediate full disclosure is required." Marcus stepped forward. "We're not asking permission," he said simply. "We're showing you what's possible." The diplomatic chamber erupted into chaos. Computational systems tried to analyze, to understand, to categorize the impossible technological intervention happening before their sensors. Representatives from multiple alien species watched in a mixture of horror and fascination. Zara, standing beside her uncle, whispered, "They're going to lose their minds." And she was right. The consortium's initial response was denial, then confusion, then something that approached wonder. An entire planetary ecosystem was being restored, not through traditional terraformation techniques, but through a fundamental restructuring of entropic processes. Areas that had been dead for decades began to show signs of potential life. Chemical composition stabilized. Atmospheric patterns began to normalize. "This changes everything," one of the alien diplomats muttered. Marcus knew they had done more than save a colony. They had challenged the fundamental understanding of environmental restoration, of entropy, of what was possible. As the consortium's diplomatic mission struggled to comprehend what they were witnessing, Marcus Chen allowed himself a moment of quiet triumph. Humanity had just rewritten the rules of the universe, and they were just getting started. The safe house on Titan's methane research platform was supposed to be impenetrable. a technological fortress built from salvaged alien and human engineering. It should have been the perfect sanctuary for Marcus Chen's team. It wasn't. The first sign of trouble came from Kai Nakamura. His quantum computational interfaces began to flutter and distort, holographic displays fragmenting like broken glass. "Something's wrong," he muttered. "We're being data mapped. Someone's trying to penetrate our systems from the inside." Aria Rodriguez was already moving, her cybernetic eye scanning for potential breach points. Her military training had prepared her for infiltration scenarios. But this was different. This was personal. Zara Chen noticed it first. Dr. Elena Volkov, their xenobiological specialist who had joined the team after the Nexus 9 demonstration, wasn't behaving normally. Her movements were too precise. Her responses slightly too calculated. "Uncle," Zara whispered, sliding a custom-built quantum disruptor from a hidden compartment. "I don't think Elena is who she says she is." Marcus studied the data streams. The Nexus 9 demonstration had made them targets. The Galactic Consortium wasn't just trying to stop their research. They were attempting to infiltrate and destroy it from within. Elena Volkov turned, catching Zora's movement. For a fraction of a second, her form seemed to shift, not physically, but in a way that suggested her very molecular structure was more fluid than human. "Interesting observation," Elena said, her voice now carrying a harmonic quality that was decidedly not human. But somewhat late, Kai's systems erupted in a cascade of warning signals. "She's not just an infiltrator," he announced. "She's a quantum adaptive organism. Biological technology beyond anything we've seen." The safe house began to transform. Walls became fluid. Computational systems started to reconfigure themselves. This was more than a simple infiltration. This was a complete systemic takeover. Marcus realized their greatest strength would be their ability to adapt faster than the infiltration could process. "Zara," he said quietly, "remember the entropy cascade simulation?" The teenager's eyes went wide. She understood immediately. While Aria prepared for direct confrontation, Zara began to reconfigure the safe house's quantum computational matrix. Instead of trying to block the infiltration, she would redirect it, create a computational maze that would consume the infiltrator's processing capabilities. Elena, or whatever Elena truly was, began to move. Her body became a living computational interface, molecular structures shifting and adapting with each step. "The consortium believes your research is a threat," the entity announced. "We are here to ensure it goes no further." Kai's fingers flew across interfaces that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Not today," he muttered. The battle became one of pure information. Quantum computational systems fighting at speeds beyond human perception. Molecular structures warping. Reality itself seemed to become fluid. Aria's cybernetic augmentations came alive. Military-grade quantum disruptors charge, creating interference patterns that would destabilize most biological computational systems. But this was no ordinary infiltration. Zara's computational maze began to take shape. Instead of blocking the infiltration, she was creating a recursive loop, a mathematical trap that would consume computational resources faster than they could be generated. Elena's form began to destabilize. The quantum adaptive organism found itself trapped in a mathematical construct of pure entropy manipulation. "Impossible," the entity managed to say. Marcus watched as his team transformed a potential catastrophic infiltration into a learning opportunity. They weren't just defending themselves. They were studying an entirely new form of biological technology. As Elena's form finally collapsed, fragmented by Zora's computational maze, Marcus realized something profound. The Galactic Consortium had just revealed their hand, and humanity was about to play a very different game. "Analyze everything," he told his team. "We just got our first look inside their real capabilities." The safe house began to rebuild itself, molecular structures reasserting their original configuration. But nothing would be the same again. Humanity had just survived its first true test of technological warfare. The Galactic Consortium's military fleet approached like a constellation of razor-edged nightmares. 17 different species had contributed ships to this unified assault, a technological armada designed to crush what they saw as humanity's dangerous technological heresy. Dr. Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the modified research vessel Prometheus, a ship that was less a traditional spacecraft and more a mobile quantum computational platform. Around him, his team prepared for a confrontation that would redefine technological warfare. Incoming waveform attack, Kai Nakamura announced, his fingers dancing across interfaces that seemed to breathe and pulse with living energy. They're using a cascading quantum resonance weapon, designed to shred molecular cohesion across entire technological systems. Aria Rodriguez's cybernetic eye rapidly calculated defensive strategies. Standard shields won't even slow them down, she muttered. We need something completely outside their computational models. Zara Chen was already one step ahead. The teenager had been studying the infiltration attempt from their previous encounter, and she discovered something profound. The consortium's technological warfare relied on predictive models, systems that anticipated and countered threats based on established computational patterns. We're not going to defend, Zara said, her voice carrying a calm that belied her 16 years. We're going to rewrite their entire attack protocol. The first wave of quantum resonance weapons struck. Most ships would have been instantly vaporized. The Prometheus did something else entirely. Instead of blocking the attack, the ship's quantum interfaces began to absorb the incoming energy. But not just absorb, transform. The destructive wave was being parsed, analyzed, and then sent back in a completely reconfigured form. Computational redirection at 76% efficiency, Kai reported, a note of scientific excitement in his voice. The consortium fleet found their own weapons turning against them. Quantum resonance waves began to destabilize their own ship systems. Molecular cohesion fields started to break down from within. Marcus watched the tactical display, understanding the deeper significance of what was happening. This wasn't just a defensive maneuver. This was a fundamental challenge to how technological warfare was conceived. They built their entire military strategy on the assumption that they could predict and counter any technological threat. Marcus explained to his team. We just proved that assumption wrong. The alien fleet began to fragment, not through direct destruction, but through a cascading computational breakdown that their own systems couldn't comprehend or defend against. Ambassador Krell-9's communication channel erupted with panic. The silicon-based intelligence that had once dismissed human potential now sounded almost human in its desperation. This is impossible. The ambassador's computational voice shrieked. Your technological capabilities cannot. Zara interrupted the transmission with a quantum encryption code that would take centuries to decode. But it wasn't just about winning a battle. Marcus understood that this was a broader statement about technological innovation. The Prometheus wasn't just a ship. It was a living computational organism designed to learn and adapt in real time. Every attack from the consortium fleet was being analyzed, understood, and transformed into a new defensive capability. Kai's interfaces began to generate something unprecedented, a real-time computational model that could predict and counter technological threats before they were even conceived. We're not just fighting, Kai said, we're evolving their entire technological paradigm. As the last of the consortium ships began to break apart, Marcus realized they had done something far more significant than win a battle. They had fundamentally challenged how technological warfare was conceived. Aria's military training saw the strategic implications. They'll never approach us the same way again, she observed. The Prometheus hung in space, surrounded by the fragmented remains of a fleet that had been designed to be invincible, a testament to human innovation, a warning to those who would underestimate humanity's potential. Prepare for the next phase, Marcus told his team. This is just the beginning. The universe was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology. It was the ability to constantly redefine what was possible. The data storm began quietly. Quantum communication networks across the Galactic Consortium started to flutter and shift, carrying something far more dangerous than a simple information virus. This was a complete systemic rewrite of technological understanding. Dr. Marcus Chen had realized something profound after their decisive victory. It wasn't enough to defeat the Consortium militarily. They needed to fundamentally transform the entire technological ecosystem that had maintained galactic oppression for millennia. Zara Chen stood at the core of the operation, her fingers dancing across quantum interfaces that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. "We're not just breaking their systems," she explained to her uncle. "We're giving them a choice." The broadcast began simultaneously across thousands of planetary networks. Suppressed research, hidden technological developments, centuries of scientific discoveries that had been systematically buried by the Consortium's control mechanisms. Kai Nakamura managed the computational logistics, creating an encryption system so complex that it would take centuries to fully decode. "Information is the ultimate weapon," he muttered. "And we're dropping the biggest bomb in galactic history." Aria Rodriguez monitored potential military responses. Her cybernetic systems were interfaced directly with the Prometheus's quantum computational core, creating a defensive network that could anticipate and neutralize any potential counterattack. The first wave of reaction came quickly. Consortium communication networks attempted to isolate and destroy the incoming data storm. But this was unlike any information attack they had ever encountered. Each piece of suppressed information was a quantum-entangled packet. Destroy one, and multiple copies would spontaneously emerge across different systems. Block one transmission, and 100 more would find alternative pathways. Ambassador Krell-9's computational form began to fragment. The silicon-based intelligence realized what was happening. This was more than an attack. This was a complete systemic liberation. "You're destabilizing thousands of years of controlled scientific development," the ambassador's fragmented voice protested. Marcus stepped forward. "No," he corrected. "We're setting it free." The data revealed everything. Technological suppressions, scientific discoveries that had been hidden, entire civilizations that had been intentionally kept at technological stagnation. The Consortium hadn't just controlled information. They had actively prevented technological evolution across multiple species, suppressed terraformation techniques that could have saved dying worlds, quantum communication technologies that had been deliberately restricted, medical advances that could have eliminated entire categories of suffering. "This isn't just about us," Marcus explained to his team. "This is about every civilization that's been held back." Zara's computational interfaces began to generate something unprecedented, a universal technological framework that could be adapted by any species. Not a single solution, but a foundational approach to scientific discovery that emphasized collective growth over controlled stagnation. The Consortium's attempts to stop the broadcast became increasingly desperate. Military communication channels, computational firewalls, quantum encryption systems, nothing could stop the flood of information. Aria tracked the global response. Planetary networks began to light up. Not with conflict, but with unprecedented levels of collaborative scientific exploration. "They're talking to each other," she reported. "Species that have been isolated for centuries are suddenly sharing information." Kai's quantum interfaces captured the most remarkable data. The information wasn't just being received, it was being understood, adapted, transformed by civilizations that had been waiting for a chance to grow. "We didn't just release information," Kai said, a note of wonder in his voice. "We started a universal scientific renaissance." The Prometheus hung in space, a silent witness to a transformation that would rewrite galactic history. What had begun as a scientific mission had become something far more significant, a systematic dismantling of technological oppression. Marcus watched the cascading information networks, understanding the true magnitude of what they had accomplished. They hadn't just challenged the Galactic Consortium. They had given the entire universe a chance to redefine what was possible. The Galactic Convergence Hall had never witnessed anything like this moment. Representatives from 3,200 and 47 different civilizations filled the massive spherical chamber, a gathering that would have been impossible mere months ago. Where once diplomatic interactions were controlled and limited, now an unprecedented spirit of collaborative exploration filled the space. Dr. Marcus Chen stood at the central podium, not as a conqueror, but as a facilitator of possibility. "We're not here to replace one system of control with another," he began, his voice translated simultaneously into thousands of linguistic and communication matrices. "We're here to demonstrate that scientific progress is a collaborative journey." Behind him, the rest of his team represented a new model of scientific exploration. Zara Chen, barely 17, had become the youngest chief technological diplomat in galactic history. Kai Nakamura managed a quantum computational network that was revolutionizing interspecies communication. Aria Rodriguez's adaptive technologies were rewriting diplomatic engagement protocols. The entropy reversal engine prototype stood as a testament to their journey. Not a weapon, but a tool of universal restoration. Planetary ecosystems that had been considered beyond salvation were now showing unprecedented recovery. Entire star systems that had been written off as entropic dead zones were experiencing molecular regeneration. Ambassador Krell-9, now transformed from an agent of control to a collaborator, presented the first comprehensive report on the systematic suppressions revealed by their universal data release. For millennia, the silicon-based intelligence reported, technological development was intentionally restricted, not for security, but for maintenance of a specific power structure. Zara's quantum interfaces began to generate real-time translation and collaborative frameworks. Species that had never communicated before were now sharing scientific approaches, technological insights, finding common ground in pursuit of knowledge. The most dangerous lie, Marcus explained, was the belief that scientific progress is a zero-sum game. That one civilization's advancement comes at another's expense. The hall listened, not with the rigid formality of past diplomatic gatherings, but with a sense of genuine curiosity. Kai demonstrated a new quantum communication protocol that allowed instantaneous, interference-free communication across unprecedented distances. Species separated by entire galactic clusters could now share research in real time, their computational matrices dancing in perfect synchronization. Aria revealed adaptive terraformation technologies that could restore dying worlds, not through massive technological interventions, but through understanding and working with each planet's unique molecular ecosystem. But the true revolution was happening beyond this hall. On thousands of worlds, scientific institutions were being restructured. Collaborative research networks were replacing isolated academic silos. Species that had been technological slaves were now becoming active participants in universal scientific exploration. "We're not just sharing technology," Marcus said. "We're sharing an approach to understanding, curiosity, adaptability, the recognition that no single perspective holds all the answers." The entropy reversal engine had become more than a technological marvel. It was a symbol of what was possible when scientific exploration was freed from restrictive control. Zara stepped forward, presenting a comprehensive framework for collaborative scientific development. It wasn't a fixed protocol, but an adaptive system that could evolve with each civilization's unique contributions. "Progress is a conversation," she explained, "not a competition." Ambassador Krell-9 made a surprising announcement. The Galactic Consortium was being completely restructured, not dismantled, but transformed into a true collaborative network of scientific exploration. As the session concluded, Marcus looked at his team. They had started as outsiders, condemned researchers, technological rebels. Now they were architects of a new universal paradigm. The universe had underestimated humanity, and humanity had responded not with conquest, but with an invitation to collective growth. This, Marcus thought, watching the diverse representatives beginning to interact with unprecedented openness, is just the beginning. Outside the convergence hall, stars continued their ancient dance, but something had fundamentally changed. The rules of universal exploration would never be the same again.